October has arrived, and it arrives with a bang here on the FFPC Insider Access Show live on the Better Sports Network. It is Fantasy Football Night in America, and we're glad to hang out with you for the next 2+ hours while we preview the Rams and Niners, as well as watch the Rams and Niners with you. Your two-screen experience starts in about 75 minutes. Hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Eric Balkman. You know me from the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and, of course, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Connect with me on X at Eric Balkman. Tonight's guest co-host, you know him well. He is on X at Dynasty Coach A. He works as a scribe for Dynasty Fantasy Football over at dynastyleaguefootball.com at DLF Football. And check out his website, dynastyworkshop.com. He is the host of the Devy Devotional podcast. Please welcome in John Arrington. John, good evening and welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words and naming all of the things that I do. In fact, you just reminded me that I have an article that's due by midnight for DLF. So I guess I'm going to be working late tonight.
Well, let's preview that. What are you writing about for DLF for this?
So it's Dynasty targets acquired for this one. So essentially, we go through and we just look at different players that you can acquire, and then we try to go in and talk about like what the actual prices are and things like that. So it's not just like, hey, go buy this guy. Oh, right. Thanks. Like, what do I do? So it's saying like, hey, this is what I think you could do. This is what I think you could buy him for. Yada yada yada, that kind of deal.
JJ Zacharyson was talking about this, I think, on his podcast last week, where he puts out these buys and sells or whatever, and somebody wrote him like, oh, I bought the guy that you were talking about, like Kenneth Walker or something, but he gave up this massive price to get. Right. He's like, look. There's a nuance to this. You need to look at this more closely than just, hey, I got to get this guy no matter what. And I have a feeling that we're going to get a lot of that in that piece that you have that you'll be working on tonight. That'll be on Dynasty League Football shortly.
If I'm not too tired.
If you're not too tired, exactly. As long as we have time, I want to continue our conversation that we had off air. And by the way, we will go around the NFL. We'll talk about Malik Nabers' fallout, Woody Marks, Bucky, Irving, so on and so forth. Our Thursday Night Football preview between the Niners and Rams. Are the Niners even field any fantasy-worthy guys? We'll talk about that with John. And then starter sits tonight, featuring but not limited to guys like Ladd McConkey, Jackson Dart, Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt, and Darren Waller. You are in Florida, right, John?
That is correct. It is
Florida,
hot as hell.
It is, yeah. Well, we're in the 80s right here in Wisconsin right now, too, which is not normal for October. But I wanted to bring this up. So we were talking about old fashions. You're enjoying one tonight. You'll probably be enjoying a second one in like an hour or so. There you go. And what I've learned through my travels over the last couple of decades, old fashions are different in different parts of the country. In Wisconsin, we have an old fashioned here. Now you can get it with bourbon, you can get it with whiskey. Obviously, with the big German heritage that we have here, brandy is huge. Brandy old-fashioned, sweet brandy old-fashioned, sour, whatever. I prefer a brandy old-fashioned press, which is like it cuts down on the calories, but you still get the flavor. What I've noticed is the old fashions literally everywhere else, especially I go to Kentucky every year, and the old fashions there, the bourbon old fashions, they are quite boozy, much more boozy than the old fashions here. Here in Wisconsin, people will get to a Friday night, they'll go to a supper club and they'll have their Friday night fish fry. They'll get there at like 4:30 so they can enjoy 3 or 4 old fashions, before dinner, and then have one during dinner, maybe have one after dinner. If you go have an old fashioned like anywhere else, man, I have 2, and there's no way. Like 1 is plenty. And then you had the experience of visiting Wisconsin and having a brandy old fashioned, different than whatever you've experienced before, but I don't know, maybe in a good or a bad way, because they don't pack as big of a punch here in Wisconsin as they do elsewhere.
No, and I was 3 or 4, and you're feeling pretty damn good. I might make it to 3 by the end of the pod, and you'll probably notice that my analysis goes downhill from there. But so we'll see how that goes. But I would definitely say yes, in here in Florida at the very least. But I mean, I've had old fashions just about everywhere. But here in Florida, like you said, it's 92% bourbon, and then you have a splash of simple syrup, and then you have a splash of your different flavors, your cherry, your orange zest, and stuff like that. I always tell people, because I don't like sweet drinks, and they're like, well, how can you drink an old fashioned? Because it's not sweet. I'm like, well, yeah, the ones that I've had are sweet. I'm like, no, that's at least how I make it, how my bartenders make it. Like, it's not sweet.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of sugar in it, but it's not a sweet drink. You taste bourbon more than you taste sugar. And I did go to Wisconsin. I had a brandy old fashioned. It was one of those things where I checked it off the list. I'm glad that I did it. I don't know that I need to ever have a brandy old fashioned ever again.
I totally get it. 100%. Before we got a question from Ray C to lead things off here on YouTube. Before we get to Ray C's question, I do want to get into, obviously, Dynasty League football. You're doing a ton of Dynasty stuff there. Tell us a little bit more about your website, dynastyworkshop.com. And then the Devy Devotional podcast I want to get into as well.
So basically, dynastyworkshop.com is essentially just like, I decided a long time ago that I wanted to be in a bunch of Dynasty leagues. And by doing that, it was like, people are always like, well, how can you do that? How can you be in 30 Dynasty leagues? How can you, how can you manage that? How can you set your lineups? How can you do this and that? Over the years, I've built tools for myself to, help with setting lineups, help with this, help with that. And so essentially I've built all these tools, and I'm like, well, why am I just holding this to myself, keeping this to myself? Like, I should allow other people to use these tools as well. There's so much good work that's gone into it. But essentially, I built a model, and I'm hoping that's the last time I'll use that word, that M word, for the rest of the night, because I hate saying it. I feel like people have kind of just, turned it into a bad word where everyone has a model, everyone has a system and everything. And so it kind of, makes me go like, well, is my thing any more special than anyone else's? But like, I know how much time and effort and research I've done putting it into it. So a long time ago, I was saying, oh, I hate that word. And my buddy was like, why don't we name it then? And so we named it Beth. And so I don't say my model, I say Beth. And it's always Beth. Like, I have Devy Beth, I have Fresh Beth, I have regular Beth, I have, wide receiver Beth, and so on and so forth. And it's so stupid, but it's just, we've run with it. And at this point, we're like 5-6 years in, might as well just run with it and, continue on. So, very long story short, I put a lot of time and effort into working in that system, and now it fuels all these tools that I've built. I mean, I was telling Sean before we got on here, I took a nap. I was tired after work. I took a little nap, woke up and said, hey, I have a podcast I have to go do, but I have 30 lineups to set. Like, what the hell am I going to do? So I went to dynastyworkshop.com, and I literally sat there and set my lineups, based on, because I have the start set tool, and it automatically downloads your roster and then tells you who to start, and so I did that right before I jumped on here. But there's so many tools. There's a DFS tools that works with DraftKings. There's a best ball tool for during the off season, so helping you build best ball lineups and things like that with Underdog or DraftKings. There's a league evaluator where it evaluates your sleeper league, and I'm trying to get into more things like FFPC and all that kind of stuff. I just need to be able to work with the API that they have, and not everyone has an open API, so I need to figure out who does and who doesn't. But my goal for, if it doesn't happen in the season, my goal for this next off season is to add more functionality with other carriers, with other services like FFPC, ESPN, whoever that I can, that I can do that with. But right now everything's set up through Sleeper. So I do all that, but essentially, like I said, I could go on forever and ever and ever, but essentially I built all these tools, and then I wanted to put it somewhere, so I created dynastyworkshop.com.
Which makes perfect sense. And I have a feeling, as far as the API goes, I think I might know some people that we can hook up the API.
I would love to. I would love to work with anyone. I tried to do it for MFL, and the funny thing is they have kind of like a semi-open API, but I was still struggling to do with things. But as long as I have that, or have some kind of access, whether it's open or someone gives me a little key or whatever, then we can make some stuff work for sure.
Which is awesome. Awesome to hear. And then the podcast that you do, which, congratulations, the Devy Devotional just reached 100 episodes, which is awesome. For those who have not seen / listened to it, what is the type of content that they can expect there that they're not getting anywhere else?
So our big focus is players that are going to make it to the NFL and be Devy viable, which means Devy NFL viable. Like, they're going to hit for your fantasy football team. We're not talking about some random player that is going to be your your 27th player in your lineup or anything like that. Obviously we will talk about those players, but our focus is like who's going to help you in the future, and we try to be as amiable as possible, and we don't hold on to takes, we don't do anything like that. But basically, like right now for the episode 100, like you said, we did a way too early 2026 rookie mock. And I've heard other podcasts, I've heard other shows, and I've heard other people, and I've seen articles and things talking about 2026, and ours is not going to sound or look anything like those, because we're trying to sit here and think what's actually going to happen in March or April, where I feel like a lot of people that focus on college and Devy and stuff are like, well, here's who I thought was going to be in the off season, and we're only 5 weeks in, so I'm going to still hold on to that hope. And I'm like, no, we've already had 5 weeks of data telling us some things are changing, and so we're going with the flow. Not to say that there's no other good podcasts or anything like that out there, but obviously that's what we strive to do, and so that's what we do. But we essentially just focus on next year's players, then the next year's players, and so on and so forth. So we're telling you about the 2028 players now, so that you'll know who to add or draft. Obviously, we deal with C2C. If you've ever dealt with C2C leagues, we do all that kind of stuff. We help people with essentially anything college football, college fantasy football, Devy, all that kind of good stuff.
I'll point out too, there are some people playing in FFPC Dynasty leagues, which, by the way, 2,000 plus leagues over the course of 15 years for all the viewers out there. Never had one fold. So FFPC is a great Dynasty place for you to play.
That's amazing.
One of the top receivers, and maybe the top receiver in the 2026 draft, Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, who everybody's sort of just like finding out about now. Yeah. John, you knew about this guy years ago and you were talking about him.
I did. Everyone has that one take that is just the greatest take that they've ever had, whether it was luck or skill or whatever you want. Jordan Tyson was my take. Zachariah Branch was considered like a top 5 wide receiver in all of Devy, if not the top 1 at the time. And I'm looking at the numbers, like I do. I'm an analytical guy. I look at the metrics. I do all that kind of stuff. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm saying, I believe Jordan Tyson will be better than Zachariah Branch. And next thing you know, not only did Jordan Tyson be better than Zachariah Branch, but he's better than everyone, and he's actually like the greatest wide receiver ever. Well, he's not that, but unfortunately, he does have a slight injury history, which we do have to be a little concerned about. But he's easily my one. We did that mock draft a couple nights ago. He's easily my 101 in the 2026 class as of right now. Obviously, anything could change, but right now, if we were to do a draft, Jordan Tyson 101. And Zachariah Branch just keeps going down. So it's probably the best take I'll ever make. But it was a time where he wasn't even a top 100 wide receiver in Devy, in any Devy ranks consensus or anything like that. And I said, hey, I think this Jordan Tyson's going to be special.
I want to shout out to all the Devy viewers tonight, all the listeners or whatever, which is it's a very cool format that FFPC has not explored yet. Maybe we will in the future. You never know. Devy, Dynasty, whatever, redraft. We also have weekly stuff going on at the FFPC. In fact, the FFPC Weekly Challenge, the Thursday version of the Weekly Challenge, still live right now for the next hour or so. No draft in this. There's no salary cap. You're just picking whatever 10 players you want, whatever 12 players you want. If you want to play with kickers and defenses, you can win up to $2,500. You can join 10, 30, or 100 team contests. The slant, you can only pick one player per NFL team. So tonight, if you want Puka Nacua, you cannot have Davante Adams. On Sunday morning in London at 8:30, if you want Justin Jefferson, you can't have Jordan Mason. myffpc.com, myffpc.com is where to go to play that right now. Shout out to Sean Engel, our producer, who I know John already did, but I'll give him another mention anyway. I will kick things off in New York. Malik Nabers confirmed he did tear his ACL in the Week 4 win over the Chargers for the Giants. His season is over. We have to look at, and I want to ask you from a dynasty perspective on this, John, the proper way to handle Nabers. But from a redraft standpoint, Ray C has a question on YouTube. Which wide receiver would you rather have rostered? We'll assume redraft format for this one. Would you rather have rostered on the Giants for the remainder of the season? Is it Wan'Dale Robinson or is it Darius Slayton? If you can only pick one of these guys, who would it be, John?
I mean, they have such different roles, and we have a brand new QB just starting out, second start. So it's hard to say what this QB even is. As much as I love Jackson Dart, Dart is another player that I was a huge fan of, and so it's so awesome seeing him already starting and all that kind of stuff. I feel like Wan'Dale Robinson has actually earned a legit role, as much as people want to dog him and, the A dot's not there and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, the guy just earns targets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that Darius Slayton isn't going to have a role and isn't going to do anything. You're obviously going to have big games out of Slayton, I would assume, but you're probably going to have those 0 point games as well, or, a couple points or whatever it might be. Whereas I think you're going to have more of the floor. So I guess it's what you're looking for. You're kind of talking about a ceiling versus floor, but I think that I would feel a lot more safe with Wan'Dale on my actual squad.
If you are of the opinion that you like to roster as your 6th or 7th receiver a player that has a high ceiling but an extremely low floor, I'm with you. It's Slayton. There's no question. Evan Silver from Establish the Run. I remember him all August talking up Darius Slayton. This was when Malik Nabers was healthy. So to your point, we have a rookie quarterback stepping in. We don't really know what to expect, but as fantasy players, we got our plant our flag somewhere. I'm planting my flag with Wan'Dale Robinson. I understand that his ceiling is not as high as Slayton, but I do think that he, along with Theo Johnson, are the types of players that are going to be peppered with targets when the Giants do pass this year. Robinson may never have that. What was that, week 2, where he was catching all those downfield passes against Dallas?
140 yards.
Yeah. He may not have another game like that, but going forward, there is usefulness in 6 or 7 catches for 70, 80 yards a game and the occasional touchdown. So that's where I stand on that. I think both of them are. In fact, I did put in for Slayton in a lot of my leagues last night. I haven't looked to see if I got him in a bunch of them. But Robinson for me over Slayton. And let's talk about the dynasty aspect of Malik Nabers, because this is compelling too. If you are trying to acquire elite talent on your dynasty roster, be it for 2025 or leagues in 2026 and beyond, this is the time you can buy that distressed property in Malik Nabers. And when people are wondering, God, how did this guy get all these players on his team in 2026? They'll remember that, Malik Nabers tore his ACL in week 4 last year, and the owner was eager to get rid of him for a player that can help him right away. This is how you win dynasty championships. What's the advice that you would be giving people, John, on how to figure out what to do and maximize value in dynasty leagues with the Malik Nabers asset currently?
Well, I can tell you, I did not realize how much Nabers I had until I was setting all these lineups today. So it was a little scary actually realizing, oh my God, I really have that much Malik Nabers. And so I'm going through this as we speak. I think what I would recommend to people is be safe, be cautious. You're dealing with a superstar. And whenever you're dealing with a superstar, don't just take the first deal that you get, unless it's obviously just a Godfather offer or something like that. But so many times I've seen people maybe not necessarily ruin a team, but you can definitely set a team back for years by being overzealous and saying, I gotta do something. I have to compete. I have to do that. And so, I would just take a breath, take a week or so, if you need to, and don't rush into a deal with a superstar. Because you don't want to get rid of Malik Nabers for Devontae Adams and go, I'm going to win this year. And now, Devontae Adams retires next year and you don't have Malik Nabers anymore. You don't want to do that kind of stuff. So just take your time, be cautious. I know right now a lot of people are not, it doesn't seem to me at least, I've tried to make some deals and things that people are valuing Malik Nabers as much as I would like them to because of the injury and everything, but everything's fresh. I think if we give it another week or two, teams will really be set in, am I competing, am I not competing, and then it might actually be easier to make that kind of deal than even this week, because people are still going, I'm 2 and 2 and I could easily win, I can still win this thing, and then next week you go, I'm 2 and 3, maybe it's not going to work out.
So unless you get the Godfather offer this week, exercise a little bit of patience, take a deep breath, let everybody else, maybe even more importantly, let everybody else take that deep breath, figure out what they're doing after week 5 when there's more clarity out there for Nabers as well. I want to get into Woody Marks here. Woody Marks this past week, 17 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown in their win over Tennessee this past weekend. He also got in the passing game 4 catches, 50 yards, and got another touchdown on 5 targets here. We have to realize, or we have to discuss whether this is real or not. I know this is the Tennessee Titans defense, and Conrad Voss is going to help us on YouTube here with a Woody Marks question. He wants to know if we would make this trade. He currently has Ashton Genty, Quinshon Judkins, Omarion Hampton, Woody Marks, and Amari DeMarcado. Would he or should he trade one of those running backs? He mentioned Judkins to get Rashee Rice, who is still going to be out for the next couple of weeks, but should be a significant PPR contributor when he is healthy and when he is not suspended. Number one, we have to decide whether this is real, this Marks breakout. Number two, we have to help out Conrad here. Should he make this deal, acquiring Rice to give up Judkins? I think we have to add in the caveat, like whether we say to do this or not, it's going to be based on whether we think this Woody Marks breakout, changing of the guard, turning of the worm, whatever is happening in Houston.
Yeah, that's a tough one with the with trying to sell and get Rashee back. I'm a little concerned about Rashee Rice coming back from the suspension. I think people are assuming that he's going to come back and just go back to being what he was for those first 3 or 4 weeks last year. But if you see what the Chiefs are doing this year, they're pushing the ball down the field more, and they're winning games. They're scoring more points by doing that, and they're getting back to what the Chiefs probably want to be. I don't think they want to win 18-16 games against Denver. I think they want to win 50-20, like they did against Baltimore, whatever the score was. But they're actually pushing the ball down the field. Xavier Worthy is no longer a rookie. He obviously dealt with the injury, but he's back. You saw what they were doing with Tyquan Thornton even before that. Rashee Rice is not a down the field threat, and I'm not saying this like he doesn't have any role or anything when he comes back, because he obviously will. But I don't know that he's going to be the key guy in that offense. I really think it might end up being Worthy when it's all said and done. I mean, he was a player that I loved in college, and then obviously goes and you link him up with Mahomes, and things were a little weird to start the season, but we saw that connection towards the end of the year, and then we got kind of another speed bump to start the year this year. But I think we're going to see more of a split, more more of a down the field presence from Worthy, Tyquan, all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know that I want to go out of my way to sell somebody like Judkins to go get Rashee Rice. I would, if anything, I'm probably trying to sell Woody Marks to say, hey, can we take advantage of people getting really excited about him? Because guys, don't get me wrong, I love Woody Marks to death, but it was the Tennessee Titans. We got to push the brakes a little bit.
And if that is, I mean, so and the other thing that Conrad brings up too, currently his receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnston, and Ricky Pearsall. So he's got a decently deep team here, both at running back and wide receiver. And I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, John, but in regards to Woody Marks, throw the Titans out of it just for a second, because we know he's not going to put up stats like that every single week. But based on what you did see usage-wise, are we starting to see Marks take over that backfield? Because it's not like Chubb ran for 200 yards against the Titans, No. Like Marks was the guy last week. Are we starting to see it? Is this the beginning of the Woody Marks era in Houston? And I put era in quotation marks, because even if Marks does break out, they still need help there with Joe Mixon maybe not even playing this year. You have Dameon Pierce, who can't, save his life to get in the game as well. And Marks, I don't know, you're the dynasty guy, but I just felt like he was sort of like this older pass catcher, savvy running back that was never going to be like an elite difference maker in the NFL, even if he got the opportunity. But from a 2025 standpoint, have we started to see Marks become at least the lead guy on this backfield for this year?
Probably. I think there's always going to be a split, but the reason why I want to pump the brakes is because that offensive line is just god awful, and I mean it seems like it's actually getting worse. And
they just traded Cam Robinson too,
right?
It blows my mind.
I don't understand it at all. That's why I really do want to pump the brakes. The Tennessee Titans are a broken team, and you see this. You see players just run all over teams or destroy teams. And I don't want to take anything away from Woody. Once again, I like the player. I don't know that he's going to fully take over. He's going to have 100% share. I mean, no one really does that besides like CMC or something like that. I think Dare Ogunbowale, wow, I cannot say that name. I think he's going to be in, we're going to call him Dare. Dare is going to be involved as well. Chubb's always going to be there, and you're probably going to see him, in the short downs and, and goal line and stuff like that, at least mixed in. But I think you can definitely get the passing game for Woody and all that kind of stuff. So he's going to have a role. I like him as a flex. I just don't want to get overly excited about him as like, oh, he's my new RB2 or something like that.
Right. I think I want to go to the King, Scott Engel, roto-baller extraordinaire, one of the greats in the fantasy industry for a long time, and father of one of the great producers in fantasy sports, in Sean Engel as well. He has a question here. What do you guys think of Alec Pierce and Isaiah Bond as players that can be picked up? We mentioned Isaiah Bond not only because of his expected day 2 NFL draft capital before the off-field stuff caused him to fall out of the draft completely and Cleveland signed him, but he has been showing out a little bit recently. And I bring this up because Dillon Gabriel, not Joe Flacco, is going to be the starter for the Browns against the Vikings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time in London on Sunday morning. Set your lineup Saturday night or early Sunday morning. Flacco is out. Gabriel is in. 68% completion percentage, 262 yards, 1 touchdown, and a pick in the preseason. 7.4 yards per attempt in the preseason was significantly higher than Joe Flacco's regular season, 5.1 yards per attempt. He was the 94th pick in the 2025 NFL draft. I would say from a talent standpoint at this point in their careers, this is an upgrade. However, is this an upgrade for guys like Isaiah Bond, Njoku, Harold Fannin, Jerry Jeudy, Quinshon Judkins? Are the Browns in a better place fantasy-wise on the offense right now, John Arrington, than they were with Joe Flacco?
All right, so I'm going to admit something right now that I guess depending on how this goes, it could make me look really good or really bad, but I love Dillon Gabriel I've loved him for years. Honestly, I think if he wasn't 5'10", like I interviewed him at the Senior Bowl, and I'm not an extremely tall person, but I'm 6 foot, and I'm just standing over him, looking down, and I'm just like, man, this is gonna be tough. No wonder he was a 3rd round pick. But I think he has the talent of better than a 3rd round pick. He's just not, he doesn't have the body. He's 5'10", and there's only so many guys that can make that work, or so many schemes that can make that work. I don't know that the Browns are one of those teams or schemes that can do that. That being said, I think, Joe Flacco's days of being elite and all that kind of stuff are over. I think we could see some fun offense from Dillon Gabriel. Obviously he's young-ish. He's not young because he was in football for 6 years, I believe. So he's at least a 5th-year player, if not a 6th-year player, coming into the NFL. So he's not extremely young. He's going to go out there with experience. He started a lot of games, started games for Oklahoma, started games for Oregon, and did pretty well with all of them. I think you're going to see a better offense than what we've been seeing. That being said, I'm not buying into Isaiah Bond. I was never really a huge fan of him anyway. I think it could be better for your David Njoku's, who's kind of fallen out completely off, the face of the planet. It could obviously be better for Jerry Jeudy as well. Tillman, is he on long-term IR or is he?
I believe he's eligible to return, but I don't know if they believe that'll be 4 weeks. It could be longer.
Okay. Yeah. So, obviously he's going to miss time. It's not to say that Bonds couldn't carve out some kind of role, but, in a Cleveland Browns offense with a brand new starting QB and all that kind of stuff, I don't know that I want to trust a guy like Bonds. I'd probably much rather have a Pierce getting you those big plays that we were talking about before with like Darius Slayton. It's not going to be every week, but for a fact that Alec Pierce can go out and get you 120 yards and 2 touchdowns on any random week. And, especially on a week like today, like I was saying, I was setting all those lineups. I'm looking at some of the players I'm starting. I'm like, I kind of wish I had an Alec Pierce right now.
I'm looking at it. FantasyMojo.com has the ownership on Isaiah Bond. 91% of main event teams, 73% of big gorilla teams have Isaiah Bond on their rosters right now. Certainly a rosterable player at this point, but to your point, John, like I don't know if and Pierce is coming off the concussion, but at least he's shown us something this year, whereas Bond has just been sort of like dink and dunk. Now, and Adam Hahn points this out too on the YouTube chat, that Matthew Golden was not as good as Isaiah Bond at Texas, and he believes the Browns made this move to Gabriel as well because their O-line is so banged up. They need somebody more mobile. Gabriel, obviously, at this point in their careers, a lot more mobile than Joe Flacco.
Absolutely.
Bond is a guy, and I think I missed out on him in a lot of my Dynasty waivers last night. I'd have to double check to make sure, but I don't think I got him. He's one of these players where I want to get him on my roster just to see what happens. And, I would assume that Bond and Gabriel got a lot of work together on the second team in practices and training camp and what have you. And maybe there's a connection there. If it doesn't happen in a week or two, I can easily move on from him. But he's an intriguing guy. And Pierce too, I think he's a player that we've seen what he can do before, and we've seen more of it this year as well. So certainly if you want to take Pierce over Bond, or if any of the viewers want to take Pierce over Bond, I don't think there's anything wrong with that as well. I think they are both rosterable right now in 20-man, 12-team high-stakes fantasy football leagues as well. Jimmy Williams hanging out with us, drafted a lot with this dude in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship in Louisville each and every year, was back at it this year. And he said he loved Christian Kirk during draft season. If we could talk about what we think this week's expectations are for him, as well as rest of season. And Jimmy, we appreciate you tuning in tonight. I will say this about Kirk. I am with Jimmy on this one. He was a player that I did like drafting as my number 4, in some cases, number 5, number 6 receiver in other cases. He gets the shell that used to be the Ravens defense this week on the road. And certainly, Jaden Higgins has flashed. We haven't really seen much from Jalen Noel so far. Nico Collins practiced in full today, so it looks like he's going to be a full go. 4 teams on bye this week, some injuries. I can see flexing out Christian Kirk this week, and I certainly want him on my roster going forward just to see what happens. I think he's the classic guy that can, step in a pinch and get you 5 for 60 and maybe a touchdown, which is very helpful when those bye weeks kick in full force. I like Kirk the rest of the way. I want him on my roster. This week, John, I see him as more of like a secondary flex play, which could still be useful as well in week 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely starting Kirk in at least 2 leagues, if not more. I can't say I love it, but honestly, of all the players right now, you have Nico Collins with the 41.3% air yards market share. Christian Kirk's sitting at 25%. He's number 2 on the team for air yards market share. So if you want to talk, obviously things have not been clicking for Houston, but if you want to talk about somebody that could turn it around, it's going to be the guy getting those kind of air yards and everything. The Whoppers there, he's not great, but we're not talking about putting him in your wide receiver 1 spot. We're talking about putting him in your first or second flex spot. So I definitely agree. I have no issues, and I'm doing it myself. I'm not just the president. I'm also a member.
Exactly. Ooh, good throwback to that tagline as well. Let's go to Dummy Man Pluto on Twitch. We'll get to if you guys got starter sits. I understand that the game starts in like 45 minutes. We're happy to tackle those right now. Should I bench Kyren Williams or Travis Etienne, or he could bench both and play Jameson Williams in the flex? His running backs are Omari and Hampton and Quinshon Judkins. Even in full PPR, like all 4 of these running backs better than Jameson Williams this week. Hampton, Judkins, Kyren Williams, and Travis Etienne. To me, I would play all of those guys over Jameson Williams right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, obviously, Jameson hasn't really had that like big game. I guess he had one decent game. He has not. Everyone said he was going to take a step forward this year, and that has definitely not happened. And the Lions have had some big games. I think I'd be iffy with. I might flip a coin between Jameson and Kyren just because this game is going to come down to. Going to come down. I don't know if they're going to have to do that much is I
Yeah.
guess what I should say. And so, it could be weird. It could be one of those weird games where you go like, they should score 50, but they might score like 12 and then call it a day or something like that. So I think the safest option is playing Kyren. That might be one of those where I go, okay, are you projected to win? Are you projected to lose by 20? That kind of thing. Because I feel like if you're projected to lose by 20, I'm playing JMO and I'm hoping he just has one of those giant games that, I mean, I guess he's technically never had, but we see who he is. He could easily have that game.
The Adam Hahn points out on YouTube, even against Cincinnati, and the thing I'll say in regards to this, and I think it was either Jordan McNamara or Chad Parsons from the Dynasty think tank said that Jared Goff is an indoor cat. He's a Detroit Lion, so he's an indoor cat because this is a guy that just puts up Madden numbers when he's inside. This game is outdoors in Cincinnati this week, and I just foresee Gibbs and David Montgomery combining for like 3 or 4 touchdowns. And to your point, I don't really see the need for Goff not only to involve Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, but Jameson Williams as well. When you have these other options, I think I'd go with those other options here. And Adam also has a defense question for us tonight. He's got to make this decision prior to kickoff. It is the Los Angeles Rams at home against the Niners tonight, or the Indianapolis Colts at home against the Raiders. We'll get into our Thursday night preview shortly. There's just not, I mean, this should be a night where the Rams defense feasts, right? Mac Jones, DeMarcus Robinson, Russell Gage, for God's sake, in this economy. Right. I mean, I understand the Colts are a good start against Vegas, but I'm slamming in the Rams defense whenever I can.
Yeah, I get what he's asking. He's asking the question because look at what Geno Smith has done. He's thrown multiple picks in multiple games and everything. So you're not wrong for asking this question whatsoever, but I think you're overthinking it. You play the Rams.
And listen, that could still happen. Geno Smith, I'm sure he's going to throw at least one pick. And maybe the fact that, okay, so I have a lot of teams where I had Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy. I had a lot of Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. So I was dumpster diving big time at quarterback this week. And probably because I have Geno Smith going in like 3 or 4 leagues, maybe it's making me a little bit biased. Like, no, Geno Smith's going to be good this week. Why would you play the Colts defense? I had to recognize, like, he should have been good last week, and he wasn't. Right. And some of just the stuff that you would expect a rookie quarterback to be doing, Geno Smith is doing in this late in his career. It just makes no sense to me. So there's something off there for sure. Andrea Russo on YouTube has a wide receiver question for us tonight. Xavier Worthy is option number 1 for her. Xavier Worthy is going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, or Zay Flowers, who's home against the Houston Texans. What say you, John Arrington, on this one? Worthy or Flowers in week 5?
Normally, this would be an extremely difficult question for me to answer because I love both of these players. But with the backup QB going in and everything, I'm looking, and I don't think it's just me. I think you look at the Vegas totals; they are not expecting much to happen in this game for Baltimore. And obviously, we have a soft defense. We have a prime matchup for Xavier Worthy. I don't think you overthink this one. Go with Worthy. Go with the points. We saw him. Yeah, I know he missed time, but we saw him come in and be the focal point in the first week back, and I don't see why that would change anytime soon.
I want to get back to the other big injury that happened in the NFL this past weekend besides Malik Nabers, and that was Tyreek Hill. Drew Rosenhaus, who represents Tyreek Hill, stated that the surgery was successful. Obviously, they're going to say who else comes out after this massive surgery and says, yeah, the doctor really botched this one. Don't go see this guy. Nobody said that.
Well, originally they were saying there was going to be multiple surgeries. And then they said that they were able to do it all in one. I mean, I hope that's true. But it was like one of those things.
Let's get your take on that, because Tank Dell had a similar injury and he did have several surgeries on this. Right. And apparently, like, Hill just said, no, we're going to do them, or the doctor said we're going to do them all at once. Right. That is good. That's not bad.
I'm taking that as a good thing, because usually you have to wait for swelling to go down in certain areas before you can go have the second surgery, and it sounded like there was even going to be a possible third or more surgeries, and now they're saying nope, we took care of it. So maybe it wasn't as bad as they originally thought. I mean, obviously we all saw the video, we all saw the picture, like his leg was crooked. That's never good, but I remember thinking like, this could be so much worse if it was, like if it was the broken ankle that Dak dealt with and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We've seen so many knee reconstructions now that it's really not the end of the world. And then I saw, oh, it's going to be multiple surgeries, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. But now they're saying it's already done. I mean, we're in week 5. We haven't even started week 5 yet. He has plenty of time to heal. He's older, obviously, but we know what kind of amazing athlete he is. If he truly wants to continue playing football, which from what they're saying he does, I don't hate the idea of buying him very cheap. I mean, obviously, I'm not paying any kind of like actual Tyreek prices, but if I can get him cheap, put him on IR, I'm doing that, and just hoping that he can be any kind of semblance of who he was before.
So this is good. I want to get into this because it seems like you're bullish on Tyreek Hill. Not saying I'm not, but I think you're a little bit more bullish than I am. Drew Rosenhaus did say that it's realistic for him to be on the field week 1 of 2026, which I think is aggressive, and I think that's also agent speak as well. And I don't know how realistic that is, but he wants to get together with the Dolphins, try to find something that works not only for the team but for him as well. It's a wide open spectrum right now with Tyreek Hill. And when we talk about buying distressed properties like Malik Nabers right now, it's totally different when you're talking about a receiver in Nabers who's 23, 24 years old, versus, or maybe even 22. I don't even know.
I was going to say, I don't even think he's that. I always add a year in Beth. So like, because I try to be a year ahead, just like
right.
Everyone says that, but like, so I always add a year. So he probably shows up as 23, but I think he's actually 22.
He is 22. I just checked. He turns 23 in July. So he's, wow. I mean, like he basically just turned 22. Yeah. So unlike Nabers, who is going to be 23 at the start of next season, Tyreek Hill will be 32 in March. That is a deep yawning chasm of nearly a decade of football on this guy's body. This is not the same thing. Even though Hill used to be, a first-round pick, the 101 in certain drafts just a few years ago. What is the price that you would be willing to pay for Tyreek Hill right now? Because I don't know what you could – I mean, I feel like you'd have – I mean, would you have to give up a first-round pick for Tyreek Hill? Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, obviously, if you're dealing with me, you probably would. But I feel like there's a lot of people that are just going to be like, he's 32. He's done. He's done in football. And if you throw them a second, they're getting a free second in their minds, because it's a player who's never going to play football again, or who's never going to be good in football again, or a second-round pick. I consider myself very good at rookie picks, doing what I do with Devy and all that kind of stuff. That being said, I will be the first to admit they're not 100% hit rates, and I think I would still, if I can get Tyreek for a second, it might not be today because it's still fresh on people's mind. I always preach patience, and definitely people do not love that, but I can tell you I've dealt with a lot of things in Dynasty football that have worked out because I preached patience and because I, practice patience. But if you just do that, and you might be able to get him for a second in a few weeks or something, once he's more out of people's minds and all that kind of stuff. And, people start focusing more on next year's draft and all that kind of, things. Next thing you know, I can go get Tyreek for a second, and then he comes back, and he might not ever be Tyreek again. But if he's Hollywood Brown or something like that, he could still be a decent flex for you, and you got him for a second.
The exercising patience thing that you brought up with Nabers, I think at least in the Dynasty leagues I plan, I think I might have to do that. We're still in, I think for Tyreek Hill owners in Dynasty leagues, they're still in the denial phase. Exactly. And we need to get like to week 6, week 7 when the buys really kick in, and you're like, good Lord, Tyreek Hill. I mean, I gotta do something here. And once you get into that acceptance stage, then you might be able, at least I might be able to pull off some Tyreek Hill magic. And you're right. I mean, it could pan out to be nothing as well. We'll see what happens there. It's all about being bold and taking chances. The Dolphins have to be bold now with the rest of the season. I don't know how you replace a guy like Tyreek Hill. You quite frankly don't. But they have to find a way to get other people involved. Jalen Waddle, we'll talk about him and your thoughts on where he ends up this year as far as, finishing among the wide receivers. Is he a top 20 guy? Is he a top 15 guy the rest of the way? And then number 2, what do you think about Malik Washington in what the Dolphins are able to do with him, how they maximize his skill set, how he fits in with fantasy football? And then quite frankly, John, any other Dolphins that we're not talking about here that might be fantasy, at least roster worthy, that we need to look at in the wake of Hill's season-ending injury?
As far as Waddle goes, I think nothing's changed for him. I think everyone loves Jalen Waddle. I've never met anyone that's like, oh, I don't want him, I'm not going to roster him or anything like that, where you have that with so many players. If you mention DK Metcalf, you have people go, oh, no, I'm not touching him. But you mention Jalen Waddle, and they go, oh, yeah, I like Waddle. But the guy just gets hurt over and over and over again. And it's usually minor stuff, but the problem is he tries to play through it, or he misses a week or two, and it's just that annoying thing where it's like, I was very happy. Going into the playoffs, I sold Waddle when he got hurt again last year. I sold him for Mike Evans, and I did not win that one. I think I lost in the championship, but regardless, I made it to the championship, and I got second place. And then this offseason, I sold Evans and a first, and I got Tet McMillan. So I was happy I basically turned Waddle and a first into Tet McMillan, and I was just happy to be out of the Waddle business at that point in that league. I still have Waddle in other leagues, obviously, but it's just one of those things. It's kind of maddening with his injuries and everything. And then going to Malik Washington, I think he already had a role. Even with Tyreek on the field, he already had a role. So if anything, he's going to have that role, and he's scoring you 10, 12 points a week, that kind of thing, with Tyreek on the field. I think we have to assume that role is going to build from there, and he is the third leading receiver as far as air yard market share, Whopper, those kind of things. But I do wonder, with Tyreek being gone, if we'll see more Nick Westbrook-Akine, who they brought in the offseason. Has never been some amazing wide receiver, but I'll tell you what, he has a nose for the end zone. He scored a bunch of touchdowns for Tennessee. And you can never say that he was consistent or anything like that, but you can say he has big playability. Well, guess what? Guess who had big playability? Tyreek Hill. They're never going to get Tyreek out of Nick, but they might try to bring as much of that as they can out of him,
We will look at how the Dolphins replace Hill's production, at least, in the lineup going forward. And it sounds like the Ravens are going to be looking at trying to replace some Lamar Jackson production. From the reports I've seen, John, both this week and next week, you get the bye week in week 7. So Lamar Jackson might be out until week 8. Not reporting that, just speculating that he might be out till week 8. Cooper Rush steps in here. Rush is a player that I think Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys, I think, brought this to my attention. Kind of an underrated player when he was in Dallas, and a respected backup, a capable backup, yet he is not Lamar Jackson. And the offense has to change in order to maximize yardage and point potential for Baltimore, especially at 1 and 3. Like it's go time here. The players here in Baltimore that I specifically want to ask you about: Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Derrick Henry, I think, is involved in this conversation. Maybe Rashad Bateman as well. Who changes the most? Like, whose value changes the most, positively or probably negatively, in the wake of Jackson now being on the shelf and Rush taking over? I think from a fantasy standpoint, the best way for you to answer this question is, are you doing anything differently with Rush in at quarterback than Jackson for players like Flowers, Andrews, Likely, Henry, Bateman, so on and so forth?
I think I can answer this question very easily. Once again, going back to the 30 Dynasty leagues, I set all my lineups before we started. I have roughly 40% Derrick Henry. I think I started him in 3 of my leagues. And I do not want to start him with Cooper Rush. It's just, I mean, you're going up against Houston. Like we talked about how bad Houston's defense or offensive line is, but I mean that defense is solid, and so I'm scared of their defense. I'm scared of what that game's going to be. Honestly, you talk about the two. You talk about the two bad offensive lines, and now you have a backup QB and everything. I mean, this might be one of those ugly 9-6 games when it's all said and done. So I could be very wrong, and it hurts to take Derrick Henry out of a lineup, especially as many bye weeks and injuries we already have. I'm still taking him out of my lineups. So it hurts, and I very well could pay for it. He could go have some amazing day. I love Derrick Henry. He's my favorite player. If you go to my Twitter right now, my profile picture is a picture. It's Scott Fishbowl.
Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but it is Derrick Henry. So I mean, trust me, I love Derrick Henry. But to answer your question, that's who I'm scared of the most. I think he's going to be the most affected. Teams were scared of Lamar Jackson's ability to run and what he was going to do with the play action and the options and all that kind of stuff. We don't have that with Cooper Rush. And so I think it's going to be a lot more of running into, 8-man piles and things like that. And so I still think Zay Flowers can get screens. He can still do his thing. Mark Andrews can still catch a touchdown or so and be okay. But man, I think Derrick Henry would have to be one of those you cannot tackle me kind of nights for me to truly believe he's going to do something.
Part of the reason Henry's been so valuable over the course of his Baltimore career has been the way that the Ravens could lean on him because they had a 7-point, a 10-point, a 15-point, a 21-point lead. They haven't had that this year. And we have seen, I don't know, it was basically just one big play, but Justice Hill looked really good. And Justice Hill is probably going to eat into Henry's playing time if the Ravens are trailing and they need to catch up because it seems like Baltimore likes to have Hill out there a lot more in pass catching situations than Derrick Henry. So now listen, I'm a weak man. Anybody who watches this show knows I say this on an almost weekly basis. I am a weak man. I can't bench Derrick Henry. Granted, I don't have the ownership that you do either. So maybe if I did, there would be some leagues where I'm like, okay, well, I'll keep him on the bench here. This makes sense. But in the few leagues I have him in, I'm still playing him. I can't. And maybe that's a detriment to me saying I can't draft running backs late and I don't have better options than him. I don't know, but he's still going to be playing for me. What about Jimmy Williams saying Keaton Mitchell, is he close to being active? I don't know if there's any urgency for Baltimore as long as Henry's healthy to get Keaton Mitchell not only active but involved in the game plan. I feel like it's a duplication of skills, and he's quite frankly not as good as Derrick Henry.
No, Justice Hill fills his role. Derrick Henry fills his role. And I was going to say, you were saying, and trust me, I get it. It hurt. And I'm not even saying I'm done. It's Thursday night.
Yeah,
I was setting lineups early. I'm not saying that I won't put Derrick Henry. I'm a weak man as well. Like I said, I love Derrick Henry to death. But I will say, I want to say he only had a 28% snap share last week. And I mean, obviously we know that they were dealing with being behind the entire game and all that, but who's to say that's not going to happen again this week? Cooper Rush was really bad. And we said Cooper Rush is probably what you would consider one of the better backup QBs in the NFL. And yet, I mean, he was extremely bad last week when he came in. Yeah. Had 4 yards, adjusted yards per attempt. Had minus 4.5 EPA per play. It just not good at all. And so that just scares the crap out of me. And that just leads me to believe they're going to be behind. And that means Justice Hill. I've actually started Justice Hill over Derrick Henry in a couple of my leagues.
I want to look at this here real quick before we move on in regards to that Ravens game on Sunday against the Texans. The Ravens are 2.5-point dogs at home to Houston, a 1-3 Texans team. Total on that game's 40.5. Kind of tells you all you need to know in regards to what you do with your players in that game. We are way over time, and I do want to do a solid Thursday night preview, even though it's basically only one team playing tonight with the Rams and the Niners. We'll break them down. I mean, we'll kind of figure this out. We'll talk about Mac Jones and Superflex drafts. We'll talk about whether Brian Robinson might have to have a bigger role tonight. And Jimmy Williams mentioned Demarcus Robinson. We'll talk about him as well. And, of course, the Rams. I want to talk with John Arrington here from Dynasty League Football. The Kyren Williams, Blake Corum split, whether it's smart to be handcuffing either Nakua or Adams if you have them. That is coming up. Plus Trey Benson's injury, Chuba Hubbard's injury, and much more. John Arrington from Dynasty League Football, dynastyworkshop.com. Eric Balkman here for the FFPC Insider Access Show as we roll on with our Thursday night preview right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in a million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at, $35, $100, or $200 buy-in, and you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week, and that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers, and when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high-stakes games are. That's where the best experts play, and that's where I play because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion, and the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Thank you, Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm. We appreciate it. MyFFPC.com is where to go to play in that weekly challenge. 10, 30, and 100 team contests. You can win up to $2,500. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. Literally takes minutes to put together these lineups. 1 player per NFL team. So if you want Nico Collins, you cannot have Woody Marks. If you want a Teteroa McMillan, you cannot have I don't know, Rico Dowdle. We'll get into that in a little bit as well. Those are the rules. MyFFPC.com is where to go. We are hanging out tonight on the FFPC Insider Access Show with John Arrington, DynastyWorkshop.com, Dynasty League Football, and, of course, the Devy Devotional podcast as well. Anywhere you get podcasts, right, John?
Essentially, as far as I know.
Yeah, exactly, yes. I want to get into our Thursday Night Football preview here tonight because we are – oh, God, less than 20 minutes away from kickoff. And this might be a quick preview, at least on the San Francisco side. We have no Brock Purdy tonight. We have no Juwan Jennings, no Ricky Pearsall, and no George Kittle. It is Christian McCaffrey and a bunch of also-rans and never was's, essentially. I want to ask you, number one, about Mac Jones, who has shown out. And this is my argument for Mac Jones tonight from a Superflex standpoint. Mac Jones has shown out in at least one game this year. And I think a lot of people were just assuming that this was going to be the player that Kyle Shanahan was going to be able to mold. And Shanahan, again, I don't want to sound boorish here, but it seems like he prefers these robots at his quarterbacks.
Sure.
Guys that he can just basically say, this is what you're doing here, this is what you're doing this here, this way, and they just do it. And quite frankly, he's had significant success doing that before. If this is a game tonight where Shanahan understands that Mac Jones, if he does what he does, the Niners will be in this game late. Even without the weapons that Jones normally has, is he super flex worthy? Could you make a case that you could start Mac Jones as your second quarterback in a super flex league tonight against the Rams defense?
I definitely think you can. I mean, the Rams defense has actually been pretty legit, more than I think at least I would have assumed going into the season. But I think you can flex. In fact, I will say I'm actually starting Mac Jones in a couple of leagues. So I mean, I will say not only going back to the whole president and member thing, like I'm doing it as we speak. That being said, like I grade every matchup, I grade every player for the week, and I'm giving Mac Jones a D. It's not his fault, and that's more of like showing with buys and injuries and things that it's kind of gross out there. So I'm still starting him, unfortunately. But it's not him. But I mean, like I said, the Rams defense is actually one of the best in the leagues. I'm looking at their pass defense right now, and let's see, the Rams, they've only allowed 5 passing touchdowns on the season. Hopefully my data's right. It should.
Yeah,
be.
It sounds right. Yeah.
I keep track of this stuff.
I have no reason to dispute that.
Oh no! Honestly, like you kind of looked at me. Maybe you were just shocked, but you looked at me like I was wrong.
I was shocked, but I mean, like to hear it out loud. But then you think about it, like, oh, that actually could be accurate.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, they've only allowed 5 passing touchdowns. They have 3 passing interceptions, or I guess you can only really have passing interceptions. You can't have rushing interceptions.
Nope.
The QB rate is 89.1 against them, which the average is 93. So I mean they're below average for QB rate, all that kind of stuff. They're below average, and by below average I mean they're better. They're holding teams against, like they're not allowing first downs, they're not allowing touchdowns, they're not allowing this. So I feel like the Rams defense is just legit and is not something we should be just completely passing over. And then you add in the fact that you're missing your number 1 tight end, you're missing your number 1 wide receiver, your number 2 wide receiver, your number 3 wide receiver, and all that kind of stuff. I love Mac Jones to death. I think that I do not think he got a fair shot in New England. And then I think he was able to show who he was at the end of the year in Jacksonville. And then, like you said, Shanahan goes, "That's the guy I always wanted anyway. Let's get him over here." So this is not a Mac Jones talent. This is like, hey, we have to sit here and go, this is a legit defense, and who the hell is he throwing it to?
So who the hell is he throwing it to? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
The wide receivers tonight. This is not a drill. For the Niners, they'll have Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore, for God's sake, and Russell Gage. Okay. No, so number 1, and Jimmy Williams brought this up earlier, he likes DeMarcus Robinson as a sleeper. Can you make a case for any of these guys? Obviously, it'd have to be in deep leagues, right?
I was all in on DeMarcus Robinson last week because I feel like he, of who's left, I feel like he's definitely the most the has the best chance to do anything. That did not work out last week. That was also his first week back after a 3-week suspension and all that kind of stuff. And it's not to say that DeMarcus Robinson is some amazing wide receiver, but we've seen what he's done for the Rams. And I mean, I don't know if it'll help or not, but he's dealt with the Rams. He's dealt with these DBs. He's dealt with that team. He knows like what to do. I'm not using that to say like, oh my God, I'm skyrocketing him or anything like that. But I was all in on Robinson was going to be the wide receiver 1, assuming that Jennings was out last week, and then Jennings ended up playing and getting more hurt and all that kind of stuff. But I think that Robinson can be the number 1. That being said, if I didn't mention Kendrick Bourne, my buddy Omega King on Twitter would absolutely kill me, because I mean that guy has been he's that like I don't want to say workhorse. What's the word I'm looking for? But essentially, like he's the guy that just does it when you need it, like that kind of guy. He's been there for the 49ers in the past, and he's proven that he can take over a game. So I don't want to discount Kendrick Bourne too much, but if I'm leaning anybody, it would be Robinson.
We're talking about these Niners receivers tonight, and you're like, Balky, why are we wasting time talking about this? Who would ever need a receiver like this? Enter my Scott Fishbowl team, who features CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Malik Nabers, and Calvin Ridley all at receiver. If there ever was a time to play DeMarcus Robinson, it is for my Scott Fishbowl team. tonight.
I promise you, I'm starting Robinson, and this might be I might be like showcasing how bad I am at this or something. I don't know, but I'm starting Robinson in at least 2 leagues. So,
listen, I get it, man. I get it. I know it's week 5, but we got bye weeks, we got injuries, we got a lot of stuff going on. We mentioned the receivers. Is there something to be said for? Listen, Christian McCaffrey can't touch the football in literally every single play. Does Brian Robinson enter into the flex space conversation at all? Because I feel like as far as draft capital and as far as pedigree, he's more talented than any one of those guys. And I wonder if they feature him more tonight. Do you see that?
All right. I might have to take myself out of this one. You might have to answer this question because I have basically always been a huge Brian Robinson hater. I'm just not a fan. I don't think he's. Obviously he's an NFL talent. This is not me. He's much better at football than I am. This is not me saying, "Oh, I'm better. I can do better." Whatever. I do not think that he is a starting caliber NFL player. That doesn't mean that he can't go out there and fill in and have a role and things like that. I do think that what they're doing with CMC is dumb. They cannot be giving the guy who had Achilles tendonitis in both Achilles last year 30 touches a game. He had to go to
Germany, John. He had to go to Germany to get this looked at.
Right. You can't do that. So to answer your question, I think they should give Brian Robinson the ball more because they're going to kill CMC. Also, to answer your question, I do not think Brian Robinson is a very good NFL starter, and so I don't think it's going to matter much.
There could be a player that matters. Adam Hahn chiming in. 51 carries, 34 catches, 501 yards on the ground, from scrimmage already this season. And I listen to so many podcasts and I read so much. I don't know who said this. My fallback has always been Gretsch because I feel like if somebody wrote something or said something, it was probably Gretsch. That he's of the belief that these guys like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, they can say all they want about wanting to get their second running back involved to take some weight off their primary running back. But when it comes down to it, they just can't get away from it. And I think we see more than ever tonight, McCaffrey volume. I think we're just going to see it. I think you're right. I don't think Robinson factors in. I think if they're going to count on anybody, it's going to be these receivers. Or, as Adam Hahn points out, watch out for one Jake Tongas tonight. Jake Tongas is going to be the starting tight end for the Niners. Obviously, no George Kittle. And that the Rams are middle of the pack against the tight ends. And by the way, I screwed that up. I wasn't sure if he was kidding or not. He was kidding. He thinks Christian McCaffrey's stat line tonight: 501 yards from scrimmage, 34 catches, and 51 carries. I'll tell you what, if that happens tonight, Niners are winning this game going away. Adam Hahn taking the points on the 7.5 spread for the Rams. So
I'll Venmo you like $10 too.
just see what happens. Yeah. Tongas, though, again, FFPC is tight end premium. You think about Tongas, maybe there's something here tonight, given no Pearsall, no Kittle, and no Jawan Jennings, John.
Yeah, honestly, he's been of a player that no one knew the name before the season. I mean, no one. I do this, I guess, for a living. I don't know. I do make money. I don't know. So I do this. A lot of people do it. I've never heard of the name Jake Tongas before this season, and yet here we are. The funny thing is, like, obviously Kittle was out and was hurt very, very early on. But Kittle and Tongas have the same exact air yards market share on the season, so that's kind of hilarious. But obviously Kittle had a 1.9 yards per route run, and Tongas only has 1.2. But that's still better than Luke Farrell. That's still better than a lot of the wide receivers that you're probably going to be talking about. I think I would be considering it at the very least. All that being said, I was talking about dynastyworkshop.com earlier, and I was telling how I have a DFS tool. My DFS tool builds thousands of lineups, like as many lineups as you could possibly build, and then it tries to grade them all down. I put in this matchup, and it only built 10 lineups. I'm not kidding. It built 10 lineups, and it said, that's it. just stop after that. So I mean, I want you to think about that. I mean, it may for Thursday night showdowns, it might not build 1,000, but let's say it builds 200 for the showdowns, and it built 10. So just think about that for a second.
Crazy. It is crazy to think about, for sure. Tongas is, I mean, like, but when you look at it, like, he could be their second best offensive weapon tonight, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true. On to bigger and better things, the Rams side of the football. This is more fun to talk about. Again, I brought up, how many Purdy, Love, Caleb Williams, Lamar Jackson teams I had, and I had to go with some stream options at quarterback. And the best one I found, and I got him in a few leagues, Matthew Stafford. I really like him tonight, John, against this Niners defense. I think he's going to flirt with QB1 numbers this week. How do you see it for Stafford?
Yeah, I think he's kind of hitting his stride. He obviously had the back issues going into the preseason and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, whatever epidural or whatever they gave him, definitely helped. As someone who has back issues, I can tell you, it's one of those things where like it's either good or it's not. So like there's very good days and there's very bad days.
Well, John, not to interrupt you, but I always say this: nobody ever says I used to have a bad back.
Right.
And then the Rams are rolling in a food truck for Matthew Stafford to basically go in this hyperbaric chamber to work on it. So I was not very excited about him this season.
No.
And here's the thing. My whole thing with Stafford this year in drafting him was like, yeah, I understand he's fine now. And you talk about the good days and bad days, makes sense. Well, what's going to happen when he starts getting smashed by these 300-pound linemen, 8, 9, 10, 12 times a game? How's he going to feel like on a Monday or, God forbid, on a Thursday where he's got to come back on short rest? And so far, he's been good. I just don't know how long that holds up.
Well, I think that the thing, at least for me with Stafford, is he seems to always just make this like 1 or 2 stupid decisions per game. Yep. He throws a pick and whatever. Guess how many interceptions the 49ers have this season? 0.
None. Yeah.
None.
Which is nuts.
I mean, it is nuts. And I mean, and you're probably, and I'm saying this, regression will probably hit, and then, they'll probably have 5 tonight or something like that. But as we're sitting here, they have 0 interceptions on the season. So we're saying, like, what is Stafford's weakness? Interceptions. What is the 49ers' weakness right now? Interceptions. So, I mean, and so I feel like I'm all in on Stafford. Obviously, we know what Puka's doing. He's breaking records for the first 4 weeks of the season, which I always kind of laugh when everyone's like, through 4 weeks, this is the most yardage. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk in 17 weeks. I don't get me wrong, like, you have to start somewhere, but it just always it's always funny to me when we're talking about records and stuff through 4 weeks. I'm like, well, yeah, that doesn't really matter, But look at what Puka's doing. Look at what Devontae Adams is doing, and honestly, none of the rest really matters. I think they're going to have a pretty big game.
Adam Hahn also pointing out that not only does Matthew Stafford not have to worry about Bosa tonight, neither does Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
And this is more of maybe this is not a week 5 conversation, John, but Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, the workload has been getting bigger for Corum and it's getting smaller for Kyren Williams. Williams obviously still dominating. But Sean McVay, I want to say, I don't think he said it after week 4. I think he said it after week 3, and I could be wrong on this, that the 70-30 split is sort of more what they're looking for. Which, again, this is what he said. We'll see what he does. But Blake Corum not only has and I'll throw myself into this. I was down on Corum during drafting season because of the draft pick of Jarquez Hunter, who has not been able to get on the field. So Corum not only has vanquished him, now Kyren Williams is in his sights as well. I'm not saying that there's going to be a changing of a guard here. Didn't Kyren Williams just sign an extension as well?
He did.
But I wonder about not saying it's going to be a 50-50 split, but getting closer to that. And in that case, and we already had, I can't remember, I think it was Caden on Twitch was asking if they're trying to move off of Kyren Williams right now. Should we be trying to move off of, Caden Jenkins, trying to move off of Kyren Williams? Who should I go for? And is that the smart play right now, to try to be shedding yourself of Kyren Williams, taking maybe 90, 95 cents on the dollar for somebody else at this point?
I think I I was always a Blake Corum fan. I think he kind of got a raw end of the deal in college, because what ended up happening is he hurt his knee in the last game of his junior season. So he had to come back for his senior year. Then his senior year, they didn't have the offense around him. Everything kind of fell off, and then he doesn't get drafted as highly as you might think. And then he goes to a team like the Rams, and I feel like the Rams have kind of proven it, because like you just said, you wanted who was the other running back that you just mentioned?
Jarquez Hunter.
Jarquez Hunter. Everyone wanted Jarquez Hunter to be a stud. I want Jarquez Hunter to be a stud. But I feel like these kind of teams are the kind of teams that say, "Hey, give it a year." You know, they did it with Kyren Williams. Now they've done it with Blake Corum. They're probably going to do it with Jarquez Hunter next year. Give it a year. You have to learn the offense. This is not an easy offense to learn. You have to learn the offense. You have to be able to block. You have to do all that kind of stuff. Now all of a sudden, Corum's 100% healthy. He's out there. He's scoring more points per touch than Kyren Williams. He has a big time run rate than Kyren Williams, but he obviously has a lesser role. So you would expect him to be more efficient. So this is not me saying he's better than Kyren Williams, but to answer your question, yes, you probably should sell Kyren if you were expecting 23 touchdowns and all that kind of stuff like you've dealt with in the past. Yes, you should try to sell him. That being said, everyone knows what's happening with Kyren Williams right now. So it's one of those things where people go, Kyren Williams is a sell. Okay, well, who are we selling him for? I don't know. So
that's
I wish I could help you there.
I think you have to take the discount on it. Like there's just if you want to get rid of him, you are not getting full price for Kyren Williams right now. That's just how it is. The game is off and running. I just real quick. I'll sneak this in. I don't think this helps anybody anymore, but Terrence Ferguson, is he a play at all tonight with no Tyler Higbee?
I actually started him once again, and it might be sad for me, but I actually started him in at least 2 leagues. So.
Okay, so there you go. So there might be something there. The thing I want to get back to Corum here tonight. 7.5 point favorites for the Rams in a total of 43.5. What do you make of Blake Corum as a flex play, or is he better off on benches tonight? I just wonder if the Rams do take control of this game, that Corum ends up having a big second half.
I mean, the 49ers rush defense has actually been fairly legit. Definitely not what I would want to attack. So, you're talking about the second option on a pretty decent 49ers. Obviously, they're not dealing with Bosa, and that can be a huge difference there. So, I mean, I'm looking at data with Bosa and all that kind of stuff. But I would say I don't necessarily want to start. I mean, the game's already started, but I don't necessarily want to start Corum here if I don't have to. But that being said, like I said, I was dealing with some pretty weird and ugly options. Yeah, and so you might have to start a Corum. I mean, I started some Kendre Millers. I started some players that I didn't necessarily love starting this week.
John Arrington's a real one. This is some hardcore stuff that we're getting into.
I mean, also in those leagues, just to I don't want people to sit here and think, some start 7 league or whatever. Right. A lot of my leagues are start 12. So when I say that I'm starting Terrence Ferguson, it's because I'm starting 12 players.
You gotta go deep.
I'm starting him in my start 6 league.
No surprise, it's been the McCaffrey show. First 2 plays from scrimmage, a Christian McCaffrey 4-yard run, and then a Christian McCaffrey 15-yard catch. After a 5-yard penalty, the Niners are still in their own territory, 1st and 15 from their own 42. Want to talk a little bit more Rams before we move on here tonight. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams have been awesome so far this season, and if either one of them were to go down, John, you would certainly look at the other one being a must play. However, what happens if that happens with the other Rams receivers? In other words, is it worth getting the number 3 receiver or any number 3 receiver on the Rams going forward tonight? Is there value for a Rams receiver not named Nacua or Adams if a receiver named Nacua or Adams goes down?
Well, like I said, the dynastyworkshop.com plug has the best ball tool, and one of the biggest players for one of the last couple of rounds that Beth was all about was Tutu Atwell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those players where he doesn't do a damn thing for the most part when Puka and Devontae Adams are healthy. But the second one of those guys are gone, all of a sudden Tutu Atwell's Puka Nacua. I mean, no, maybe not to that extent, but it's so weird. Like, you would think with what he's done when these players are gone that you would think Tutu is kind of like decent at least.
Yeah.
And they paid him as a decent player. They paid him what, 10 million or 12 million or something to that effect for 1 year. I mean, you could tell the team loves this player, and yet he doesn't do anything unless they're gone. But the second they're gone, I promise you, Tutu will have 100 yards, eight receptions for 100 yards. It happens like every single time. So yes, I would say that Tutu Atwell is the guy. DeMarcus Robinson would have been the guy, but he ended up leaving. So that's why I'm still a DeMarcus Robinson fan, but he's no longer on that team.
It was another 15-yard catch for Christian McCaffrey, and then a 35-yard catch over the middle to Kendrick Bourne from Mac Jones. The Niners now have it inside the Rams red zone, 1st and 10 from the Rams 18-yard line. Mac Jones 3 of 3 for 65 yards, just the way we drew it up. The Tutu Atwell thing, I'll just bring this up. I was watching Red Zone with my 12-year-old son on Sunday, and we're watching that Rams game, and obviously Atwell catches that 80-yard touchdown to essentially win the game, to ice the game, to put it away. And I said to him, I'm like, and that's why you're paying that dude $10 million a year for plays like that. And he got it done. He got it done. And it's probably not going to be the last time he gets it done this season as well. So that is our Niners-Rams preview. McCaffrey carry takes it down to 2nd and 7. And now a Jake Tongas catch. Shout out Adam Hahn. He gets it, a 6-yard catch down to the Rams 9. It is now 3rd and 1. With 11:30 to go in the first quarter. We'll see what Kyle Shanahan dials up here. I want to get back to the Jaguars backfield. Travis Etienne rushes 19 times for 124 yards and a touchdown in their win over said Niners last week. Your thoughts on Etienne, whether he can sustain this and whether it's maybe inevitable in 2025 that Tuten eventually takes over this backfield. Your thoughts on how to properly handle Jaguars rushers right now, John Arrington.
I'm sorry, I only heard half that question because I was trying to turn the game on, and then all of a sudden, all of the volume came on, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I could not hear anything you said. Was it the Jaguars?
Jaguars running backs. I mean, like Etienne was awesome again in week 4, but it just seems like the Tuten stuff isn't quieting down. Is there going to be a point this season where Tuten takes it over from Etienne, in your opinion?
All right, first of all, there was a Tunges touchdown right there. So
was it? I am way behind. Behind here.
Jake Tunges touchdown.
Shout out Adam Hahn. Good call, my friend. Good call. That is awesome. Yeah, I see. I got the McCaffrey play. It gets it to 1st and goal. Was it just the 6-yard? Yeah, Adam.
It was. It was.
6-yard touchdown to Tunges. Good for. Oh, that's awesome. Unless you started the Rams defense tonight, then my apologies, because Mac Jones is on one. 5 of 5. 77 yards and a touchdown. Unbelievable stuff here. As Tonjes. God bless Thursday night football. Man.
Thank God I did not talk crap about Tonjes. I said he was going to be fine, all that kind of stuff. Thank God. But we also said that the Rams defense was going to be a start, and maybe that was going to be.
They still could be.
They easily still can.
Like 34-7. We'll still be talking about the Rams defense.
I'm talking about the DFS tool and all that kind of stuff on the Thursday night game with or with whatever game it was. I don't think it was Thursday night with the Packers or Sunday night, I think it was, with the Packers and the Cowboys. And I fell asleep at going into halftime. And when I fell asleep, I was up 300%. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And I fell asleep. I woke up in the 4th quarter and I opened up my DraftKings and I said, oh no. Yeah. That's how quickly that kind of stuff can happen. So just because the Rams D isn't doing necessarily what we want them to do on the first drive doesn't mean that won't happen. And that's how the NFL works. But going back to your question with, all right, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I do actually like tooting my horn, but like not to toot my horn too much. But I've been the biggest Tank Bigsby hater for 5 years. That was my original player that I was just like on the Devy Devotional. I'm like, I don't get it. Everyone loves this player. Everyone's talking. There was a time. I mean, it was a very short period of time, but there was a time when people liked Tank Bigsby over Bijan Robinson. Just so you know, if you didn't know that. and so I've always been completely out on Tank. And then when he was getting so much hype in the offseason, I was buying Travis Etienne. I was also buying Bhayshul Tuten because I love that guy. Like he's so explosive. He's so much fun. That being said, I think as much as I want Bhayshul Tuten to take over, we've seen Travis Etienne become almost a different player this year. Whether it's because of the competition or whatever it is, I don't see any reason for them to be like, oh, Bhayshul Tuten's our guy now. If anything, Travis Etienne is a better receiving back than Bhayshul Tuten. And so, like, there's no reason for all of a sudden Tuten to take over some kind of role because Travis Etienne's also running really well this season. So I don't see anything changing anytime soon. I can't even say that as much as I love Travis Etienne that I didn't expect Tuten to take in some kind of role at some point. But I think it's going to be kind of a slow roll at this point. And the thing is, like, people are like, oh, you know, the Jaguars are terrible, this and that. They're 3-1. They're winning games, you know, like whether it's right or wrong, you know, like it's one of those guys, you know, it's one of those, like, you look at your Dynasty league and you go, well, yeah, you're 3-1, but you only scored like the 9th most points and things like that, you know, so maybe it's a fake 3-1, but as far as an NFL team is like, why are they going to change? They're winning games. They're not going to change right now.
I by the way, shout out to Raptor J, as I'm just replying to him right now in the YouTube chat. 10-team league, and he's going against Tonjas tonight in a 10-teamer. That is tough to do. So hopefully it happens for him. I'll bring this
McBride or somebody.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. I'll bring this up, Ray C. And this is something on my local fantasy football show that I did a couple hours ago here in Northeast Wisconsin. And I think this is worth bringing up. And I got kind of poo-pooed on this. But Michael Pittman was healthy yesterday. He was added to the injury report today with a hamstring injury. If he still gets in a limited practice tomorrow, hey, hunky-dory, he's probably going to go. However, I'm a little bit worried that Pittman's not going to go. And if that's the case, dude, you're looking at Josh Downs and then Alec Pierce, who could be back this week. When you look at the Colts right now, if Pittman does miss, how much interest do you have in Josh Downs and Alec Pierce as starters this week?
Well, I can tell you the one thing you don't want to ever hear is that a guy was healthy on Wednesday and he's hurt on Thursday.
100%.
That is like the worst thing you can hear in all of fantasy football. So that scares the crap out of me. That being said, I have a lot of Josh Downs. I only have I think I have one share of Michael Pittman in all of my leagues. And it's not even to say that I hate the player or anything like that. It's just how it's worked out. But I love Josh Downs. I don't even know if we've truly gotten the Josh Downs experience so far this year because he was kind of hurt in the beginning and you obviously have a new QB and all that kind of stuff. So you've seen him kind of ramp up this season, but like you said, if Pittman's out, I think it's going to be the Josh Downs show. Not to say that Tyler Warren won't also mix in, but I feel like every touch Warren has is completely scripted, 100%. Like I don't feel like any of them are like off script or anything like that. I feel like it's we're throwing it to Tyler Warren 2 yards from the line of scrimmage and he's going to run for 8 yards. And not to say that that's a terrible thing or a bad thing or anything like that, but I don't know that he's necessarily going out there and like winning routes or anything like that. I haven't necessarily seen that yet. Josh Downs can absolutely do that. So yeah, Pittman misses time. This could be a huge week for Downs and there's no better time, at least for me, because like I said, I have a decent amount of Downs and thank God I could like actually throw him in the lineups.
What would you rather have for Delta Blues question here on a trade? Would you rather have the Jamar Chase, Nick Chubb side, or would you rather have the Courtland, Sutton, Blake Corum side?
How are we here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we say this every year, John. You know this. I mean, we say this every year.
I know.
We're like 4 weeks into the season where I mean, Justin Herzig, former co-host of this show, puts out in his newsletter today, the Fantasy Football in 60. his poll question today, I think it was today, who would you rather have in Dynasty, Quentin Johnston or Ladd McConkey? And you're like, what? Like
right.
how is this a thing? And yet, it rightly or wrongly, it is a thing right now that we're dealing with.
Obviously he's saying rest of season. I'm assuming this is redraft.
Yes.
Okay. So in redraft, man, it's so hard to look at what Jake Browning is doing and being like, oh, he's all of a sudden going to turn it around. I know he kind of had like a run last year, but that run fell off pretty quick. And I mean, there's a reason why I'd say I have 30% Jamar Chase. And there's a reason why I lost a lot of Jamar Chase leagues last year because of Jake Browning and everything that happened with that. So, unfortunately, I don't know what it is, but we seem to be in this terrible spin of, Burrow getting hurt, Chase getting hurt, whatever might be happening. And yet I can never get them to just have like a full solid season, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That being said, we talked about Woody Marks earlier. I don't really want Chubb for any reason. I was kind of out on Chubb going into the season anyway. If anything, Corum's an amazing handcuff, and he could actually be taking more of a role as we speak. I don't ever want to put Sutton over Chase, but man, I think we might have to. This actually hurts my soul, but I think we might have to.
It's close here, and I've been a Jake Browning apologist these last couple of weeks, and I'm like, you look back to what he did in 2023. He was pretty confident. He flirted with quarterback one numbers on several weeks. Some of those without Jamar Chase, by the way, too. And then I said, well, look at who he's faced so far. Minnesota, really tough defense. Denver, really tough defense. It's going to get better. Well, they get Detroit this week, another really tough defense. So I don't know. Eventually, I think it gets better, but I don't know.
Yeah.
For me right now, and ask me tomorrow, I might choose the Sutton side. I am going to lean towards the Chase side here, but I totally get the Sutton versus Corum thing. And Chubb's not helping my argument either.
No,
this is purely a Chase call rather than Sutton.
I don't know what people who were huge on Chubb were thinking this offseason. And don't get me wrong, I love Nick Chubb, the original player. But I'm talking about 2025 Nick Chubb.
It was nostalgia. That's why they're high.
Yeah,
it was nostalgia.
Exactly. But it's just what were you expecting?
It was a combination of two things. It was nostalgia, and it was a disbelief in Joe Mixon. That's what it was. Those two things combined.
And then once Mixon was out, then it was even more.
Oh, yeah. Saddle up and ride. Nick Chubb to the moon. Here we go. And obviously it's not working. We forgot about the offensive line. And I'm lumping myself in this too because I have way too much. It's not that I have a ton of Nick Chubb, but I have too much Nick Chubb right now. Before so I want to get to this because I've been dancing around it most of the night. I want to talk about this Trey Benson news. And I'll share this story, John. I'm in one Dynasty league right now, and I haven't checked the waivers to see if I got him. But coming into this Dynasty season, I had James Conner and Trey Benson on the same team. After the Conner injury last week, I put Conner on IR, and I picked up Amari DeMercado. Okay. So I had 3 Cardinals running backs. Then Trey Benson gets placed on IR, out 4 to 6 weeks after he gets his knee scoped, his meniscus scoped. I put in, and I don't know if I got him. I put in for Michael Carter. And if I was successful in winning the bidding on Michael Carter, I have 4 Arizona Cardinals running backs. Granted, 2 of them are on IR right now. On the same team. That's not healthy. That's not something we should be doing, but I may have to in my situation. Let's help people out this week at least. Benson gets hurt against the Seahawks in week 4. He's now going to be out at least a month. Amari DeMercado, Michael Carter, and then Bam Knight, I guess I'll bring up as well in this situation. How do you foresee this playing out for fantasy? I have 2 of my buddies, one guy starting DeMercado against the other guy this week, and he's saying, I got the starter in Michael Carter. And I said to my one buddy who's starting DeMercado, I'm like, he might have the starter. You might have the better fantasy player, full PPR. This is tough to wrap our heads around. Who's flex worthy between Carter, DeMercado this week, or are they both?
I'll tell you what, I try not to act like the expert when it comes to this kind of stuff because I don't know. I don't know what the team's doing. I mean, from what I've heard from just about anyone, and you said how many podcasts you listen to. I listen to a lot of podcasts during the day. And it seems like everyone has kind of come to the consensus that Michael Carter is going to be the first and second down back, and Emery DeMarcado is going to be the third down back and the 2-minute back and all that kind of stuff. The thing is was Michael Carter ever supposed to be a first and second down back? That was never supposed to be the thing. He was always supposed to be the third down back, and he's supposed to be the DeMarcado. So I can't say that I love either one. I will say, obviously, they have a focus on running, and so there's a reason why we were excited about James Conner. There's a reason why when James Conner went down, we were excited about Trey Benson. Mm-hmm. It gets a lot more difficult when you start going to the third string and fourth string guys and everything, but I don't hate picking either one up. I just feel like at this point, I feel like it's one of those things where the team actually has to pivot. And okay, we cannot run this game like we have James Conner anymore. So we actually might have to throw the ball more. Mm-hmm. And that's where you see the team who generally throws the ball 40% of the time, all of a sudden now they're throwing the ball 60% of the time. And you see those outlier seasons. This might be one of those outlier seasons where all of a sudden you see Kyler either running more himself, which is obviously an option that people aren't considering with the Michael Carter and DeMarcado stuff. I cannot say his name either. But then on top of that, I think they just might actually throw more. Everyone saw on an island game that MHJ catch where he's crying in the end zone and everything. Tell me, as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach or whatever, tell me you're not going to pepper the hell out of him in the next game, because you just got that experience of we fixed him. So now let's pepper him. Let's turn this into a good thing. We just lost our running backs. Very long-winded way of saying I don't really want to truly believe in either of these players until they actually give me a reason to do it.
Are you familiar with the film Armageddon, John?
Oh yes. In fact, I'm a manly man and all that kind of stuff, but I'll tell you what, I tear up when that movie's on. I'm not gonna lie.
the very ending when Billy Bob Thornton gets the patch from Ben Affleck, that's significant. Here's what I want to bring up about this movie, and I promise it ties into fantasy football. You remember the scene when Ben Affleck is drilling through the meteor, and they're saying the drill bit's not going to hold up, and Bruce Willis says he's thinking about backing off, and Ben Affleck says, if there's ever a time that you ever were going to trust me, now is the time to trust me. This is Marvin Harrison right now. If there was ever a time in fantasy football that you were going to trust Marvin Harrison, now is the time. And it worked out for Ben Affleck. Spoiler alert. I know that movie came out 30 years ago or whatever. You missed your chance.
Our listeners have no idea what you're talking about right now. Yes. Luckily I do, but yeah. And long story short, MHJ is going to save the world.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And Kyler Murray, they leave on the asteroid probably. I don't know how it works.
Maybe.
Okay. So I have not been giving proper updates on this game. The Rams punted on their opening series after a couple of decent runs from Kyren Williams for like 6 or 7 yards. Puka Nacua gets a 5-yard catch. The Niners then got it, a DeMarcus Robinson catch for 13 yards, along with a roughing the passer penalty, set up 4th and inches for Mac Jones inside Rams territory. It looks like he has been successful on this quarterback sneak. And now, we're looking at 2nd and 1 from the Rams 39 after a Marquez Valdez-Scantling 9-yard catch. My head is spinning right now. I can't believe what I'm witnessing here still in the first quarter. Kyle Shanahan for Coach of the Year. 3:35 to go in the first. Niners up 7-0. One more thing I want to get to. I know we're up against it here. Bucky Irving did not practice again today. Can you let us know your thoughts on how you think this because it looks like he's going to miss. Can you let us know your thoughts on how this backfield is going to shake out with Rachaad White and Sean Tucker? Is Rachaad White a top 25 running back for you this week? I think if the answer is yes, he's in most of our lineups. And then Sean Tucker, we have to figure out, is he flex worthy at all against the Seahawks?
Yeah, I think the whole Sean Tucker thing, as much as I liked him in college, has kind of been overblown. Rachaad White did not necessarily like lose his job. He always had a job. The thing was Bucky Irving made it impossible for the Bucks to keep him off the field. And so, like he obviously grew and grew in his role. I don't think this is all of a sudden going to be like, oh, like what we were just talking about with DeMarcado and all that. Like we're not dealing with that. Rachaad White's going to be the starter. Rachaad White's going to be the lead back. Tucker might touch the ball some, and we would probably deal with more maybe short yardage with him and stuff like that. Although we've seen Rachaad White be the short yardage back for the Bucks, so I don't even know that we can guarantee that.
Yeah,
it really could just be the Rachaad White show. And honestly, I'm starting him like that. I'm assuming it's going to be the Rachaad White show. I feel like this is one of those things where it's like it's legit. Sean Tucker is going to be the backup. Obviously, if White needs to come off, he's going to spell him. He's going to be that kind of back, but he's not going to be the I'm taking over now because Bucky's gone guy.
Yeah, Adam Hahn saying White isn't the guy you're handing off to, and that may be.
But they do. They still do, even with Bucky in the game. Like I don't. I feel like people hate Rachaad White because of how good Bucky is. I'm a Bucks fan. I live in Tampa. This is not me like being away from the team or anything. Like I'm going to the game next week. I promise you, I'm a Rachaad White. I'm a Bucky fan, but I'm telling you right now that they do not hate Rachaad White like people want you to believe. It's just that Bucky Irving is so damn good, he has to be on the field.
Yeah, he does. He absolutely 100% does. Bucks and Seahawks square off at 405. That is a 44.5-point total. Seahawks 3-point favorites in that game as well. Okay, I think we have to do this. I want to take a break. Before we take a break, I will promise you we're going to talk about that Carolina Panthers backfield with the Chuba Hubbard injury when we come back. We'll also get into some start sits as well. Taking advantage of the FFPC Weekly Challenge. They've gone to a timeout, 4th and 1 for the Niners. We'll see what happens when they get back. FFPC Weekly Challenge, myffpc.com. No draft, no salary cap. Pick the 10 or 12 players you want to compete with. Just can't be on the same team. If you want Mac Jones, you can't have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. If you want Matthew Stafford, you can't have Kyren Williams. 10, 30, and 100-team leagues. One player per NFL team. Win up to $2,500 this weekend, myffpc.com. When we come back, we'll tell you what the Niners are going to be doing on 4th down here. We will also get into some start sits for you that will help you out in Week 5. John Arrington from Dynasty League Football, dynastyworkshop.com. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. We roll on right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at myffpc. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at, $35, $100, or $200 buy-in, and you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio, FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
The Niners and Rams game continues to wow us here. Another 4th down conversion for the Niners. Brian Robinson getting a 4-yard run as well. He's getting some run here. Another McCaffrey catch for 8 yards on this drive as well. The quarter has come to an end. The Niners are on a 14-play, 67-yard drive, which is boggles my mind. 3rd and 8 to go at the Rams 24 when they resume for the second quarter. They've gone to break. We will not, because we just came back from one. And we'll
just missed an almost Demarcus Robinson touchdown.
I saw that, yeah. Which I mean, again, wouldn't surprise us, right? You talked up Demarcus Robinson here tonight. Don't be.
I was like, I said I started him in 2 leagues. I was like, come on, let's do it.
And it was the first quarter. He's got 3 more quarters to wow us, which may or may not happen. We'll see. I was not wowed with Chuba Hubbard not practicing yesterday or today. He's dealing with a calf injury. And John Arrington from Dynasty League Football, DynastyWorkshop.com. We know that calf injuries are tricky for pretty much any player in the NFL, but especially these skill position guys, running back, receiver, tight end. I have already kind of resigned myself that Hubbard is not playing this week. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe it's right. What do you think this backfield split looks like with Dowdle and Trevor Etienne? Is Dowdle a safe flex start at this point if Hubbard misses? Or is Trevor Etienne going to eat in too much into his pass-catching volume that we may want to pump the brakes on just automatically starting Dowdle?
I might have to. I removed myself from an earlier question. I might have to do the same thing here because I have so much Trevor Etienne in Dynasty. Like, he was like my free square in the like 3rd or 4th round of rookie drafts this year. That it's really difficult for me to answer this question because I truly believe that Trevor Etienne is the best running back on the team, beyond Chuba Hubbard, beyond Rico Dowdle. That being said, and I mean, look at what the team did. They drafted him early. I want to say that he was was he the 5th earliest drafted running back or 6th or something around there?
I'll bring it up. But that sounds right.
He was very. I mean, he was drafted in the 4th, but he was one of the first handful of running backs drafted in the draft, and that was one of my always things. It's like, you know, people are talking about Dylan Sampson and this and that. I'm like, well, but Trevor Etienne was drafted before him. Like, the team is showing us that they want to do they want to do this. Then he goes out and just looks like a stud on special teams, you know, just destroying things. But he hasn't really had his true chance. He goes out and gets an actual decent chance. I think he had seven rushes for like 30 yards or whatever it was last week, and now we have Chuba Hubbard hurt. I don't think it's going to be long before we're saying everyone needs to be picking up Trevor Etienne in all their leagues and all that kind of stuff. If he's not already taken, and maybe an FFPC where it's shorter rosters, Trevor Etienne could easily be on waivers there. That might be a player that you really want to look into because we're seeing the potential. He already touched the ball last week. He touched the ball 7 times last week, and now Chuba's hurt. I think we all know that Rico Dowdle is no one special, and I mean, maybe I'll end up being wrong on Trevor Etienne, but I would much rather take the shot on the guy that could be special than the guy that we basically already know is not special.
Yeah, that's a great point. Etienne owned in 19% of FFPC main event leagues, 17% of FFPC Big Gorilla leagues. So he's out there, Jerry, and he's loving every minute of it, to quote Seinfeld here. To bring it back to the draft, the NFL draft, obviously we know the 2 first-rounders were Genty and Hampton. The 3 second-rounders, the Ohio State guys, Judkins and Henderson, R.J. Harvey snuck into the back end of the second round. Only 1 third-round pick, Caleb Johnson. And then in the 4th round, within a span of 14 picks, we saw 5 running backs go off the board. It was Tuten, then it was Scadaboo, then Trevor Etienne. 2 picks after Etienne was Woody Marks. 1 pick after Woody Marks, Jarquez Hunter. And then we still saw Dylan Sampson in the 4th round as well to bring it up.
And most of those guys are already kind of in the mix, for things. So it's not that crazy.
Caleb Johnson.
Well, yeah, except for Caleb Johnson. Oh, CMC just scored. I know you're a little behind, but CMC
I am behind. I got to refresh this or get better internet. This is really irritating. Not only am I behind on my video on the Prime Video, I'm behind on my internet too because it's still showing. Was it just a 1-yard rush from McCaffrey?
It was a 1-yard reception.
Mac Jones, unbelievable stuff tonight.
Yep. Mac Jones, who I also started in a couple of leagues. So I mean, when you're dealing with 30 leagues, starting him in a couple it doesn't really help you that much. But I mean, we take dubs wherever we can. You're
right. And you know who's going to get all the credit? Kyle blanking Shanahan for transforming Mac Jones. In a night he didn't have Pearsall. In a night he didn't have Kittle. In a night he didn't have Jennings.
Hey,
he's up.
I mean, It's not very often that I'm proven wrong an hour into a show, but I mean, I was sitting here saying start the Rams defense, and we're already wrong. I won't even throw you into the mix. I was wrong.
Yeah. I want to go to YouTube. There's plenty of comments here coming in. Raptor J, half-point PPR, Keenan Allen or Chase Brown? Would you be benching Keenan Allen, or would you be benching Chase Brown this week in favor of Keenan Allen in half-point PPR, John?
Yes, I'm 100% out on Chase Brown. Honestly, like, I think Keenan's a start of the week. Keenan's not even like a flex play for me this week. He is a wide receiver play for me this week. So if you're asking me if I'm starting him over Chase Brown, absolutely. And we got Adam Hahn, and nice call on the Rams with an eye roll. I 100%. I deserve that 100%.
I do too.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. This is not. I mean, this is the NFL that we live in now. Like I said, I went to bed on Sunday night knowing that the Packers were going to win by 50, and they tied. Like that's the NFL that we're living in right now, guys.
We are 100%. And I want to let everybody know, in full PPR, I think it's Keenan Allen over Brown. Half-point PPR, I think it's closer for me. I still will lean towards Keenan Allen. I'm with John on this, but it is a little bit closer when it comes to that. Racy wants to know, is Chase Brown a buy low candidate? I'm going to say no, because as much as it pains me to say this, I think it could get lower for Chase Brown. So no, now is not the time to buy a Chase Brown yet.
I think Chase Brown is the perfect, or I guess, to use a big word, the epitome of a bad player. And I won't say bad player. Once again, like I hate saying bad player for NFL players. They're all good. But a not amazing player in the NFL in an amazing situation. And in the second they're no longer in an amazing situation, it's not amazing. And so if you look at what Chase Brown's done, I mean, the big time run rate's not there. The juke rate's not there. There's nothing there. What we were dealing with last year was a lot of touchdowns because they were put in great situations because of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's one of those things. It reminds me of Isaiah Pacheco. It reminds me of some of these players that would never, ever be good on any other team, but they just hit the perfect scenario, and it works for a season. It never works for multiple seasons. So I've always been out on Brown, and obviously that meant that I did not have any of them last year, and that meant that I was getting hurt last year. But this year it's obviously worked out in my favor to where it's like he's not a special player, and the second you take away a special circumstance, he's just kind of done.
I wonder if Chase Brown is the type of player you hold. If you're in dynasty leagues, you hold him all this season. You wait till Burrow gets back. And then when everybody's starting to say, okay, they're getting the band back together, Burrow's healthy for 2026, then that's the time you sell on Chase Brown before we realize that, hey, maybe this guy isn't just a special player. He was the fortunate person in a special situation. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud right now.
Or I know obviously we're dealing with a lot of injuries, and then we also have 4 buys as well. But when's Buy-Mageddon when we have 6 or 8 buys or whatever it is? Sell Chase Brown that week. That's when you sell Chase Brown, not today. And obviously, every league's different. If someone wants to send you something, great. But I think it's that week you go, hey, I have a starter for you. No one else touches the ball.
Here's when it is, John. The weekend of it's week 8, which is coming up a few weeks away. Cardinals, Lions, Jaguars, Raiders, Rams, Seahawks, all on bye. That means no Genti, no Kyren Williams, no Zach Charbonnet, no Kenneth Walker, no Travis Etienne, no Bhayshul Tuten, no Jahmyr Gibbs, no David Montgomery, no whoever the hell the Cardinals are trotting out there at that point, which could be multiple backs as well.
Who you selling? Chase Brown, baby.
Chase Brown. That's what it's all about.
Hey, guys, I have a starter for you.
Exactly. And you may not like it, but you need a warm body in your lineup. All right, we got a few minutes left here. We're having some fun here tonight on the Insider Access Show, brought to you by the FFPC on the Better Sports Network. We'll kind of go rapid fire as much as we can on these, but let's do some starter sits here, John, as we see the Rams try to get something going, down 14-0 here in the second quarter. Chris Godwin or Ladd McConkey? Godwin, 10 targets last week. McConkey, 1 catch. Who are you starting this week?
I think you got to follow the targets here. McConkey has just not been earning them. And, it's I think everyone was surprised by the Quentin Johnston ascendance, ascension. So I'm not trying to act like I knew that was going to happen or anything like that. But you add in, I already talked about how I love Keenan Allen this week, so he's going to earn targets. QJ's been earning hella targets, all season long, and I don't. If it was like these fluke plays like Gabe Davis used to have, you might say, okay, it's not gonna happen. But when you're getting 8, 9, 10 targets every week and it's working, why are you gonna go away from that? I think that Godwin had 8 targets last week, but he only converted like 3 of them into receptions. I watched that game once again. I live in Tampa. I'm a Bucs fan. I watched that game intently, and I can promise you that was a lot of rust from Chris Godwin. He was shaking off that rust. I'm going with Godwin here. I think it's almost, I don't want to say obvious, but it feels obvious. It's just one of those things. Shake off the rust, and the next week, bam, you got a week.
No Mike Evans this week as well. I think I'm with you. Godwin over McConkey here. What about a battle of the juniors? Marvin Harrison Jr. or Brian Thomas Jr.? We already talked about Harrison Jr. Would you be playing him over Brian Thomas this week?
I think it's completely narrative based, but I'm rolling with the whole what do we say? MHA is going to save the world. Armageddon, baby. I feel like they figured something out. He figured something out. There was something, the mental block or whatever it was. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it'll be nothing, but I think that like crying in the end zone was a big deal. And I really feel like we're going to see a different MHJ going forward.
Harrison gets the better matchup with Tennessee as opposed to Thomas, who's at Kansas City. Here's a fun one. Current Minnesota Viking Jordan Addison or former Minnesota Viking Stephon Diggs in a revenge game as his Patriots take on the Bills on Sunday Night Football.
All right, this one's a little more difficult because Diggs just had a really good game. He had a bunch of targets. I think he had a 42% target share or something like that. Absolutely insane. I am going to go with Jordan Addison, though, because I have a rule with divisional games, and I just do not – I hate playing them. If I'm, like, kind of going back and forth with the player, I choose the guy that's not in a divisional game. And obviously it has bit me in the ass in previous – circumstances, but I would say most of the time, like maybe 8 out of 10 times, it saves me. So I try to avoid any kind of divisional games. I'm going with Jordan Addison there.
That's it for the receivers. We want to get to quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends here, so we'll go super rapid fire. Let's do this. Justin Fields at home against the Cowboys or Drake May, again, Sunday Night Football at Buffalo. Which one are you taking? Or starting, I should say.
I got to go Fields, man. That Dallas defense is just a sieve, and you got to take whatever you can get with that. As much as I love May, I just talked about how a divisional game, Buffalo's not going to play that easily. Yeah, give me Justin Fields.
Yeah, Fields is the elite of the elites for me this week. Really difficult to sit him. What about the new Giants quarterback, Jackson Dart? Are you excited about him enough to start him at New Orleans over Bo Nix at Philadelphia?
If we have Malik Nabers, yes. We do not have Malik Nabers. Give me Bo Nix.
I agree. I would agree with that. I'm gonna give the nod to Nix over Dart. Moving to the running backs, a Jets backfield that features no Braylon Allen. Would you start Breece Hall or would you start Javonte Williams this week? Javonte Williams at the Jets. Breece Hall, spoiler alert, home against the Jets.
Man, that's actually tough because I feel like the Jets are actually going to put up points against Dallas, and they're going to want to, obviously Javonte is going to be a part of that game plan. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I think I might start Javonte over Breece Hall this week.
I think gone back and forth on this. I think I'm still playing Breece Hall because of that Cowboys defense, but I get it.
I'm gonna put it into Beth, and I'm gonna see what Beth says because sometimes I'm stupid.
Beth is the model that, by the way, that John Arrington has come up with for Dynasty Workshop.
Okay. Beth has Javonte as an A, Breece as a C.
Ooh, okay. So it's Javonte Williams, no question then. Got it. Okay, let's finish it off here. Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt or RJ Harvey this week. Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt is at the Chargers, and RJ Harvey is at Philly.
All right, this one's tough because you're basically asking like players that barely touch the ball, like which one am I starting? And like we're probably just gonna be wrong whoever we choose. I believe that Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt is actually a better player as of right now. This is not me saying like he's a better player overall or anything like that, but like he's in a better situation than RJ Harvey is. That being said, I think with the matchup and everything, because I don't really want to go up against the Chargers, I think I might choose Harvey. But honestly, like I want to go Croskey-Merritt, but I think that even Beth is kind of out because I have a couple of Croskey-Merritt shares. Actually, I have a decent amount of Croskey-Merritt shares, and I don't think I started him anywhere. So I would assume that Beth is pretty out on him as well.
Croskey-Merritt for me on this one. I think that he has been underrated this season. I think he's a better running back than what he's shown, and I hate starting running backs against the Eagles. So it's close, obviously, but I'm going to go with Croskey-Merritt. Tight ends, we'll finish it off strong here. Would you bench Sam Laporta at the Bengals in favor of Juwan Johnson at home against the Giants?
Is Juwan healthy? Do we know that?
No, he is not healthy, but he has not been ruled out.
I think you got to go with Laporta. I really do. I'm starting Juwan in a couple league or probably handful of leagues, and I don't love it. I see the questionable, and I don't even know if I truly believe it's a questionable. It's obviously not a doubtful where I'd say, okay, I'm actually taking him out of my lineup, but
right.
It's one of those things where, and I'm looking at it here. Beth is telling me Sam Laporta as well, so
I'm a weak man. I'm a weak man. I'm playing Laporta over Johnson, who's dealing with an ankle injury, did get in a limited practice today. Dallas Goedert or Brenton Strange this week?
They're starting to use Goddard like KC uses Kelsey in the end zone with the trick plays and things like that. I really feel like I feel like Goddard's always kind of been a joke, but I feel like we have to actually take Goddard seriously right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of this is going away is essentially what I'm trying to say.
Goddard, by the way, is also dealing with an injury right now. I do believe he did practice today. Yes, he did. With a knee injury, he practiced today. And then the final one, Darren Waller, 2 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. Is that enough for you to say, yes, I'm starting him this week over David Njoku?
I think I would basically start anyone over David Njoku right now. I mean, it's sad. Like, I love Njoku. Njoku was one of my original players. I started being an analyst. I'll do air quotes. Being an analyst in 2017. You are an
analyst. Now you want to put expert in quotes. I do that for everybody, but analyst, you don't have to put quotes or an analyst.
But I mean, I'm saying in 2017, I don't know if I would consider myself an analyst in 2017. Okay. I'll consider myself an analyst now, but I started being an analyst in 2017, and it was the David Njoku year. I cannot tell you how much David Njoku I had. Obviously, I've traded some since then over the course of 8-9 years. But I love that man to death. Like there's something about. I try not to get too excited about a man taking off his shirt, but there's something about David Njoku taking off his shirt and just strutting around like a dude. Like just it's unbelievable. But yeah,
and putting on the mask that he had when he was dealing with
when he was dealing with the burn and all. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I love David Njoku to death, but we cannot say what we've seen with him with obviously a different quarterback. That's the thing we were talking about earlier. Is like we're dealing with a different quarterback. It very well could be an Njoku day, but until I actually see it, I guess give me Darren Waller. And I absolutely hate to say that because when you first said Darren Waller, I was like, oh, it's going to be the other person. And then he said David Njoku. I was like, oh no.
Tua Tagovailoa said after that Monday night game, it's been a long time, maybe in his whole NFL career, where he could throw it at the goalpost, the crossbar, and have somebody go up and get it. And Waller did that on Monday night. Will more of it happen? I don't know. But for more analysis on that and more things fantasy football, dynastyworkshop.com. Check it out. At DLF Football on the X, of course, is where you can follow Dynasty League Football. And check out John Arrington on X. Give him a follow there. Connect with him there at Dynasty Coach A. Of course, the creator of the Beth model, which you can check out at dynastyworkshop.com. John, thank you, number one, for pinch hitting tonight. This was awesome. And number two, you're in the rotation. We'll have to have you on again soon, maybe during Dynasty season too, so you can really stretch your legs, which will be a lot of fun on this program. I appreciate you, and we'll talk with you again real soon, man.
Hey, absolutely. This was amazing. I've gotten to a point where I talk more about Devy than anything else. And, like I do so much in the Dynasty space that I want to talk about Dynasty. I used to have a Dynasty podcast, and I do not anymore. So this was amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. John, it was great. We will do it again soon. MyFFPC.com, your home for the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Went up to $2,500 this week. 10, 30, and 100-team leagues. No draft, no salary cap. Pick the 10 players or 12 players you want. Just don't duplicate players on the same team. MyFFPC.com. We'll be back at 7 o'clock p.m. next Thursday. Fantasy Points, Brian Drake is going to hang out with us, which will be fun because it's Eagles and Giants next week. Drake, I believe, a massive Eagles fan. We'll talk with him about that. 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time kickoff this Sunday in London. Vikings and Browns. Don't miss out on sitting and starting the proper players early on Sunday. Get your lineups in Saturday night if you have to. For our producer, Sean Engel and John Arrington, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy the rest of this Niners blowout, apparently, and we'll talk to you again next week.